this a really good and helpful presentation for everyone. So a couple other housekeeping things. If you're here for extra credit, please make sure that you didn't just sign the sign-in sheet for the event, but that you also signed the extra credit sheet for your class. If you have to leave early, they will, pull it out and let you sign it, but you have to note the time that you left so that the professors can have an accurate description of how long you were here, okay? The other thing is that at the end of the presentation, we're going to have an opportunity for a discussion, and you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. If you're uncomfortable asking a question out loud, you can text the question to a number that I'll be posting on the screen. So you'll have an opportunity to do that as well. The other thing is that if you stick it out until the end, there's a goodie bag for everybody on the way out with lots of fun stuff in it. So I do hope that you'll stay with us to the end, and I hope that this will be helpful to you. The other thing is that if there's any feedback that any of you want to give regarding the program, please feel free to email me or request a discussion with me, and we can certainly do that. Finally, this presentation is being videotaped, and this is so that Say Yes Buffalo can use it in some of their promotions, and also with regard to some of the other colleges, and Amanda Paul will be explaining that to you a little bit later. Any questions so far? Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I want to play this short clip from Carl Shallowhorn, who is with the Erie County Anti-Stigma Coalition. And hopefully this will work for us.
One out of 5 young people lives with a mental health condition. So for any young person that feels they may be struggling from any kind of condition, let someone know. When you talk about it, in many ways a big load can be lifted from your shoulders. Especially if you talk to someone who is willing to listen, and when we find someone who is willing to listen, we don't even necessarily need an answer. I'm Carl Shallowhorn. I'm joining the conversation.
So that's really what tonight is all about, in that we really just want to start a conversation and make sure that we recognize that it's something that is okay to do. So I want to talk about what mental health is, because I think people have a vague understanding of that, but sometimes not a real in-depth understanding. So mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes their own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, and can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. Sounds good, right? So what if somebody doesn't have mental health? What kinds of things make up mental illness? Well, that's kind of a little more broad, right? And basically mental illnesses are medical conditions. And they disrupt a person's thinking, feeling, mood, ability to relate to others, and their daily functioning. So just like diabetes is a disorder of the pancreas within the body, mental illnesses are medical conditions that often result in a diminished capacity for coping with the ordinary demands of life. And it's a brain function. So there's various types of mental health conditions. The first, which we see a lot of in the counseling center, are anxiety disorders. This includes generalized anxiety disorder, PTSD, other obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorders, social anxiety disorders, and then some other specific phobias. Sometimes people have like a fear of heights, or maybe they have a real fear of insects, something along those lines, okay? Then we have mood disorders. That includes things like depression, mania, bipolar disorder. And these come in a variety of degrees of difficulty for people, right? Some people can have a mild depression that's kind of always lingering, and then other people have a major depression where they can't get out of bed or function and go to work. Eating disorders are something that we see amongst young people, especially because media really does a lot to tell us what we're supposed to look like instead of appreciating that we're all different. And so sometimes that becomes a real problem for people, and it comes out in an eating disorder. There's also impulse control disorders, including ADHD, things like compulsive gambling. And then we have psychotic disorders, and those are very serious disorders that really affect a person's ability to function well. And that includes things like schizophrenia. And then we have adjustment disorders. Now, the thing that makes adjustment disorders different is that it includes things like mood issues and anxiety, but it's a temporary thing. It's not something that lingers over an extended period of time, okay? So when students come to college, sometimes there's an adjustment period. Or maybe if you start a new job, there might be an adjustment. Sometimes it can even be something good. Sometimes I'll have people come into my private practice office and they've just gotten married and they're really struggling to adjust to that. And it's not a bad thing, like they enjoy being married and they're happy to be married and they're happy to be with their partner, but it's just a bit of an adjustment and it's rather difficult. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, but those are temporary things, unlike something like a generalized anxiety disorder or a major depression, okay? Now, I want to talk about two things in particular because it makes up a vast majority of what we see coming into the counseling center. And it's not that those other diagnoses aren't important, it's that I wanted to have something for us to focus on. I could do a 2-day presentation on all this stuff, right? So we had to pare it down a little bit. So depression symptoms. Who here knows some depression symptoms? Just shout them out if you know them. Sadness. Say again? Loss of motivation. Anybody else? Yeah, like a loss of interest in things that you used to find enjoyable, right? So feelings of sadness, tearfulness, emptiness, hopelessness, angry outbursts, irritability or frustration, loss of interest or pleasure in most of the normal activities that you've used to enjoy. Sleep disturbances, either insomnia or oversleeping. And insomnia just means like you can't fall asleep or stay asleep. Tiredness and lack of energy or poor motivation to get things done. Reduced appetite, weight loss, weight gain. Anxiety, agitation or restlessness, slowed thinking, speaking, or body movements. It's like your brain gets a fog to it. Feelings of worthlessness or guilt, fixating on past failures or self-blame, trouble thinking, concentrating, making decisions, and remembering things. Often when I see somebody who has a depression in my office, they're really struggling to find words. You know, it's almost like your brain is just not thinking as actively as it normally would. Frequent or recurrent thoughts of death, suicidal thoughts, suicide attempts, or actual suicide. Unexplained physical problems such as back pain, headaches, or other aches or pains. We call that somatic symptoms, and that just means that there's a response in the body that's reacting to the mental stress. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so depression can alter both your mind and your body. It can weaken the immune system, and it can also create cortisol. Now, the other thing that happens along with that creates extra cortisol in addition to depression is stress. And so when there's a lot of cortisol in your system, what happens is that the stress hormones make your heart beat faster. And your heart isn't really made to do that all the time. Our bodies are made so that if you are having an increase in heart rate, it's usually because there's some sort of danger, right? But if that's happening all the time, what happens is that long term that can actually cause some heart disease. And so we see people who have a lot of trauma in their background, a lot of history of depression, a lot of history of anxiety, and untreated conditions that they'll end up, if they've had high cortisol levels for a long period of time, it can actually lead to heart disease. And it can also lead to weight gain. So the hormones released during episodes of depression can negatively impact a bunch of different things. This includes cerebral functioning, that means your brain's function, emotional stability, sleep disorders, and cognitive abilities. So that recall, the ability to learn new things, right? We've just been going through an incredibly stressful time the last, I don't know how many months it is now, maybe 20. And everybody's getting really tired. It's really been a lot. A lot of things that you guys haven't had to be able to experience because COVID restrictions and things along those lines. And what's happening is that we're getting a lot of students into our office who think that they have ADHD. And they come in and they say, you know, I can't focus, I can't concentrate on things, I'm having a lot of difficulty. It's not ADHD, folks, because when you were in 6th grade and 9th grade and 12th grade, you weren't ADHD then. You don't just suddenly develop ADHD. But what's happening is that depression and anxiety related to situational things that's long-term going on, like the shared stress that we've been having with the pandemic, can cause your cognitive abilities and your cerebral functioning to be impaired. And it feels a lot like ADHD in some respects. So now we're going to talk about anxiety. And this is the second big one that we see a lot of people diagnosed with. And anxiety symptoms include panic, fear, or uneasiness. Even if you know you're in a safe place, it becomes really difficult to feel safe. You might also feel like that there's some sort of doom or impending danger that's happening. Sleep problems, not being able to stay calm or still. Cold, sweaty, numb, tingling hands or feet. Shortness of breath. Breathing faster or more quickly than normal, it's called hyperventilation. Heart palpitations. Dry mouth. Nausea. Tense muscles. Dizziness. Thinking about a problem over and over again and being unable to stop, it's called rumination. It's like your brain just won't let it go. Inability to concentrate. And intensely or obsessively avoiding feared objects or places. Now, what are you guys noticing? See if anybody gets what I'm looking for here. When you look at the symptoms between depression and the symptoms between anxiety, what are you seeing? There's a lot of them the same. There's some carryover or crossover, right? So sometimes it's hard to figure out what's what. Now I will say, sometimes anxiety symptoms are so hard, like so strong and so overwhelming, it's almost like you're having a panic attack, right? We've had, or you are having a panic attack, but it's like physically you feel very like strongly that something is wrong physically. When I worked at my last job, we used to have to work in the emergency room periodically to cover in the county that I was working in. It was a rural county, they didn't have psychiatric services, so if somebody came in with a psychiatric issue, we would have to go in and assist. And so we'd go in at least once a month, sometimes more, where somebody was having chest pains. And they would have swore up and down that they were having a heart attack. You're not doing the right tests. I'm having a heart attack. It's my chest. I'm hurting. I feel like I can't breathe. All of it. It was a panic attack. That's how strong you can feel when something like that's happening. Okay. So, anxiety, how does it affect your body? Again, brain, difficulty concentrating, mind fog, irritability, poor mood. Cardiovascular, the high cholesterol, your cholesterol levels can actually go up. High blood pressure from the cortisol, surging through your veins. And then the increased risk of heart attack. Joints and muscles can have an increased inflammation. muscle tension, and aches and pains. Who here, when you're anxious, who here has ever been anxious about something and your whole body is tense? And then the next day you can wake up and you can be like, oh my gosh, like, why am I hurting so bad? What's happening? And you realize that the day before you were really stressed and tense, and that's what's causing the muscle aches the next day. So your immune system, you get this weakened immune response, which can lead to other health conditions. Even your skin, it can result in hair loss, in brittle hair, brittle nails, dry skin, or acne. And it's all related to the anxiety effects on the body. Gut health, people who have anxiety can have issues with diarrhea or constipation, indigestion, bloating, or just pain in your stomach. Reproductive system, there can be a decrease in hormonal production within the reproductive system, which can cause all kinds of issues, including problems with menstrual cycle for women, libido, which is just your sexual arousal, and also PMS symptoms for women who are menstruating. Oops, sorry, went too fast. Okay, so now we've learned a little bit about anxiety and depression, but what about this concept of stigma? Who here can tell me like what they think stigma is? Anybody, give it a try. We're a small group, yeah.
Kind of like negative attitude or misinformation about something that's, you see someone as different because they have something.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. Very good job. So stigma is a perceived negative attribute, such as a psychiatric diagnosis, that causes someone to devalue or think less of the individual that is carrying the diagnosis. Now, unfortunately, this is a very common experience for people who have a mental health condition. It's unfortunate but true. And it might be obvious and direct, such as someone making a negative remark about a mental illness in general, or saying something like, oh, that person, they're just crazy, right? Those are the kinds of things. Or it might be something more subtle, like somebody assuming that you're unstable just because you have a mental health diagnosis, or that people are more violent or dangerous because they carry a mental health diagnosis. If you look at it in terms of general population and violence in general population versus violence in people with mental illness, it is actually much less. So it's the complete opposite of what people might think about that. Individuals might even judge themselves, which makes it really hard to get help, right? So I'm going to play a short video, which I really enjoy because I feel like it really makes you understand how we treat mental health different than physical health.
And I was like, yeah, right, man. Oh! Oh, my head.
Please don't complain. It'll ruin the vibe.
Just...
It's like you're not even trying to walk. Have you ever tried not having diarrhea?
God, my migraine's killing me. You take meds for that? Oh, my God, dude, I thought my doctor was really, really bad. Some people have it way worse than you do. You gotta chill out.
So I guess you're not going out with us tonight. Again. You're such a flake.
Oh, man, I really think I sprained it this time. I gotta go see my physical therapist. Therapy? Yeah.
Whatever, Marco.
Can you hold on one second?
Honestly, your attitude sucks.
Yeah, I have to. Have you ever thought about shopping with us? Having this store?
It's a beautiful day, man. It's time to get up.
Dude, I just got eye surgery.
Yeah, like a week ago.
Well, it still hurts.
Wow.
Oh, I think his friend hurts. Okay, no, he's fine.
So really, if we treated mental health or physical health, the way we treat mental health, it would seem pretty ridiculous, like that video. And yet that's what happens all the time for people every day who have a diagnosis of a mental health condition. So I encourage you to look that video up, share it on your social media posts, because it's important to share that information and make sure that people, if the word is getting out, that we need to treat this like a medical condition that it is. So we have had people in Sully the last, like Monday and Wednesday, I think, of this week, doing the Antistigma pledge. There's, on the posters that are around, there's a QR code to take the pledge on the Erie County Anti-Stigma Coalition website. And there's also some anti-stigma pledge papers in the back. And we're going to ask that everybody sign one if you're willing to. And then they're going to be put up on the garage doors in Sully downstairs. And it's just for us to make a statement that we want to be anti-stigma related to mental health. So I hope that you'll take that challenge. So, what other things can impact mental health? You know, it's not just a biological thing. There's other things that play into and impact people's mental health. These include trauma, stress, current events, societal concerns, nutrition, exercise, and physical health. So all these things play into how people respond to mental health conditions and whether something becomes worsened because of one of these other things impacting. So we're going to kind of go through quickly some of these things. And the first is trauma. Now, trauma is another thing that I could do, and I have gone to 3-day presentation, like 3-day trainings on trauma. So we're not even going to be able to touch all of the specifics around trauma. But I want you to think about these things in relation to how they may affect you or other people that you know. So trauma can take many forms, and it can impact us in many different ways. But some of the things that can be very traumatic to folks include community violence, complex trauma, which means that you may have a history of multiple traumatic events that are very serious, that overlap, and that you're exposed to over an extended period of time, like your lifetime. Domestic violence, early childhood trauma, medical trauma, natural disasters, neglect, physical abuse, refugee or war zone trauma, school violence. We just had another incident in Michigan yesterday or the day before. Sexual abuse, terrorism, and traumatic grief. And then you have things that I didn't even put on here, including shared trauma. And I really think that the length of time that this pandemic has been going on is really a form of shared trauma. We're all going through that at the same time. Now, stress. Who here has ever experienced stress? Hey, the hands shoot up back there. I know I do every day, right? You were supposed to have Amy Glover, who's our nurse practitioner, present in a little bit on this. And as you notice, I didn't introduce her because she's not here tonight, because she got sick earlier today. And I think she's fine, but she wasn't able to stay for the presentation. So I was a little stressed when I heard that I was going to have to do her part too. But, you know, you make it work. So, in terms of stress, if you feel like this, here's my little kitty friend. I think he's pretty hilarious looking. You might be stressed, all right? So if you find yourself being very reactive to things and feeling very out of sorts, you're probably stressed. So what is stress? I like this image because I think it gives you a very visceral, like physical response to what stress is. You know, that rope looks pretty strong, right? If it was all together, or the halves that are all together looks pretty strong. But when you look at it and you see that one fiber that's holding it together, and it could break at any moment. That's what stress feels like. So stress is a state of mental or emotional tension or strain resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. Okay? And we experience these every day. Stress is a normal reaction to everyday pressures, but it can become unhealthy when it upsets your day-to-day functioning or it lasts for extended periods of time. Now, there's a bunch of current situational stressors, and these are changes to the environment, maybe expectations about how things will go, and that can be stressful. Like, so if you think something's going to happen one way, and then it ends up happening another way, that's a form of stress. Now, it could be a good thing, but it could also be a bad way. You know, it could be totally not the way you expected it to go. Now, uncertainty about what will happen next can also be very stressful because it gets you feeling overwhelmed and not sure what's going to happen next. Uncertainty about the future or financial stressors can be scary. And these are all natural reactions to an abnormal situation. Even if you're someone who usually responds well to stress, this might be a difficult time for you right now because of everything that's been going on for the last almost 2 years now. Now, kinds of things cause stress. Social injustice, finances, work demands, my clicker doesn't want to work, family, illness or medical conditions, intimate relationships, responsibilities, mental health diagnoses, world events, and of course the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Does anybody have something that's not listed here that you think is stressful? Yes. Academic work. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. So, common effects of stress. Once again, we're looking at depression, anxiety, stress. How does it affect your body? How does it affect your mood? How does it affect your behavior? Well, stress, for one, can cause headaches. It can cause muscle tension or pain, chest pain, fatigue, change in sex drive, stomach upset, sleep problems. Are we seeing the pattern? Right? All these things are repetitively causing issue with the same functions in the body. Now, your mood. If you're under a lot of stress, it can impact anxiety, restlessness, lack of motivation or focus, difficulty concentrating, feeling overwhelmed. Irritability or anger is going to be higher, even frustration tolerance, and then you've got sadness and depression depending on what's going on. In terms of your behavior, this could lead to overeating or undereating, can lead to angry outbursts, it can lead to increased alcohol or drug or tobacco use, social withdrawal, and things like being unmotivated to do physical activity. And then all of those things build up to more of a problem over time. So how can you manage your stress? Well, you can avoid stressful situations, but I don't know about you, but I can't always avoid stressful situations because they're just there. So you can change how you react to stress. You can avoid extremes, set priorities, set realistic goals, take control of the situation, manage how stress affects you, discover new relaxation techniques, change how you see the situation, and most importantly, figure out what is most important in that moment and focus on that instead of everything that's going on. So, one of the biggest things with young people in college is time management. Who here thinks that time management is something that can be stressful at times for you? I know it is for me, right? So, some of the things that I encourage people to do is to create a to-do list and then prioritize that to-do list, because that's going to help you figure out what's most important to do in that moment. Try to be really effective with your scheduling. I know several of you, and I know some of you have a really hard time with saying no, and then you overbook yourself, right? And then you're scrambling, and you're trying to do 50 things at once. I do it myself. But doing that too much can lead to more stress for you. Goal setting. Who here has a goal? Y'all better raise your hands. Who here has a goal? Come on. Are y'all going to graduate from college? All right, there's your goal, right? And you probably have other goals too, other personal goals that are really important to you. Who here has ridden a bike? Anybody? Okay, most of you. When you're on a bike, where do you look? I'm riding along. If I'm looking over here, what do you think is going to happen to my bike? I'm going to crash, right? Possibly into a tree if I'm like, oh, look at that tree, it's so nice. Boom, into the tree. You got to look where you're going. And if you're not looking where you're going, and that's identifying a goal and focusing on where you want to go, you're not going to get there. So that's why it's so important to identify goals and learn to focus yourself on those goals, even if they're small and incremental. And then the other thing is minimizing procrastination. When I was in college, I was probably the world's worst procrastinator. Like, it was like, my whole thing was always, I worked so much better under pressure. Lies. Lies, I tell you. There's no way anybody works better under that kind of pressure. It's always going to be better if you schedule time out, do things a little bit at a time, rather than pushing yourself like that. So think about that the next time you try to push something off. How might it be helpful to get some of it done right in that moment? Okay? So, what can we do to stay physically well, and how does that connect to mental health? Now, you guys have to bear with me, because this was the part that Amy was supposed to do. So I'm going to do my best. So let's connect the dots. Mental health and physical health are fundamentally linked. And to achieve optimal health, take care of your mind and body. If one is neglected, the other can suffer. Makes sense, right? So let's focus on two things: nutrition, sleep, and exercise. The first thing, nutrition. Who here thinks that they always eat a balanced diet? Anybody? I don't see a single hand raised, including my own, right? But there is a connection between what you eat and your emotions. And your brain and GI tract are also connected. So your GI tract is home to billions of bacteria that influence the production of neurotransmitters. And eating healthy food promotes good bacteria, which positively affects the neurotransmitter production and helps with mood and decreased anxiety and other mental wellness issues. So a steady diet of junk food, processed foods, sugar, causes inflammation, which hampers the production of these neurotransmitters. And the brain receives all those chemical messages, and then that influences your emotions. Who knew, right? But the nurse said it, the nurse practitioner said it, so I totally believe it. Now, nutrition. Sugar in your diet feeds bad gut bacteria. There's all kinds of studies on this. And even though it may cause a temporary spike in feel-good neurotransmitters, like, oh, that chocolate was really good, right? So that can create something called dopamine, and that makes your brain feel better. But the result is fleeting. And the sugar rush is followed by a crash. So fluctuations are not good for our moods. And a regular diet of healthy food improves your ability to focus, causes fewer mood fluctuations, and helps nourish your mind and body. So whole foods versus processed foods. Who here can tell me what whole foods are? Anybody? Yes. Right, things that haven't been overly processed. So raw chicken breasts that you're going to cook yourself versus chicken fingers with breading on them that's been processed and pieced together from McDonald's, right? Or a carrot sticks versus French fries, okay? Now, some mood-boosting tips are to increase fiber intake or plant-based foods, vegetables and fruits, and add inflammation-fighting antioxidants like berries, dark leafy greens, salmon, turmeric. Then increase your intake of folic acid, magnesium, and vitamin D. And that you can get from all those items there, the dark leafy greens, cantaloupe, lentils, mushrooms, dark chocolate, one of my personal favorites. That's what I always use. I can have my dark chocolate, right? Almonds, cashews, bananas, beans, etc. So, also try probiotic-packed fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, tempeh, and kombucha. All right? Those things all help with gut health. Now, avoid the pitfalls, such as not, skipping meals. I would venture to say, well, let's do a show of hands. Who here skipped breakfast today? I would venture to say that that's the majority of you. If you skip breakfast, how does your brain have any energy to do anything, right? It sort of doesn't. So limit your fast foods, because remember, those are those highly processed things that we want to avoid. Be mindful of caffeine and alcohol intake. And then some tips and tricks include meal prep, make small, healthy food swaps, right? Stay well hydrated throughout the day. Carry healthy snacks in your bag for fuel so that you're not tempted to get the junk food. And sleep. Who here got enough sleep last night? Oh, a few of you did. I know I didn't. I was busy, getting this ready to go. So sleep is super important, and good sleep is vital, right? So, you can't just nap periodically and, get a couple hours here, a couple hours there. It doesn't allow your body time for your brain to recharge. So when you're sleeping, the brain cells are actually repairing themselves. And they've done studies on people that have poor sleep patterns over extended periods of time, like decades. And they tend to have issues with dementia and Alzheimer's as they get older. Now, they don't know how connected that is to the sleep, but they do notice that people that have with Alzheimer's and dementia have more difficulty sleeping. And that may be because your brain does not have time to repair itself while you're sleeping if you're not getting enough of it. Makes sense, right? So, goal, 7 to 9 hours daily. That is not my usual routine. I need to work on that. And it needs to be preferably at night, not during the day. Getting too little or too much sleep, or not sleeping when your body needs rest, can have negative consequences. You can be kind of cranky, have difficulty concentrating, have a decreased energy over the course of the day, and it can contribute to feelings of depression, anxiety. It also inhibits our performance. You're not quite, as steady as you go if you're sleep deprived. Now, how do you help with sleep? One of the things would be to limit caffeine intake and energy drinks, especially in the afternoon and evening. Because the closer you're drinking those things to when you're trying to go to sleep, the more difficult it's going to be. Limit alcohol intake, create a bedtime routine, do something relaxing before bed, work out bedtimes and routines with your roommate if you're living in the residence hall to make sure that you're both on a similar schedule so you're not getting woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Try to avoid looking at your phone or electronics before you go to bed. A lot of phones and computers have a blue light inhibitor that you can switch on. I recommend that you do that so that if you do have to look at your phone, you're not looking at the blue light, which actually wakes your brain up. And try to get some exercise and fresh air during the day. Herbal supplements such as melatonin or something like sleepy time tea can also be pretty helpful. And white noise. Sometimes if there's like a lot of noise in the hallway or in other areas of your household, if you have some white noise going on, a fan, or they do make white noise machines, you can probably even download something as an app on your phone or something. But the white noise often can help with that. Exercise. So we all know that regular exercise can improve your mood, reduce panic attacks, lower your stress, enhance your brain function, and boost self-esteem. It doesn't mean that you have to pump iron all night long at the gym, okay? But the goal is about 150 minutes weekly. So it's 5 30-minute sessions. You could even break that up into 2 15-minute sessions in a day. It doesn't necessarily have to be all at once. Get outside. You know, even in the winter, try to go do some things outside. Being in nature and outdoor itself can improve mood, mindfulness, confidence, physical health. All these things just really become much less problematic if you're getting some fresh air and exercise. Natural daylight also raises your serotonin and vitamin D levels. And in New York State, we have some of the highest rates of vitamin D deficiency around because we just don't get enough daylight in the winter months. So it's very important. And you can also talk to your primary care doctor. They can actually run blood levels to see if your vitamin D is low. And if it is, if you're feeling very fatigued and like you just don't have enough energy, if your vitamin D levels are low, they can actually give you vitamin D supplements, or you can take over-the-counter supplements if you know that that's the case and you check that out with your doctor. And that can sometimes help improve the energy level that you might be lacking. Also, bodies burn more calories in the cold. So basically, if you go out in the wintertime and you're walking around, it increases your metabolic rate if it's cold outside. Kind of pretty cool. It's a little added benefit of living in Buffalo. Now, your assignment, if you'll take the challenge, is to get out and go outside, even if it's winter, and get some exercise. Try one of several amazing things that I'm going to go over in a minute that can help do some outdoor activities with your friends or family members. And if you're doing an activity outside, it's like getting exercise, but without being boring and just sitting there walking on a treadmill or something. So often people look like this in the winter. I got a good couple laughs over here, so that's good. And so, you know, if this is all you want to do in the winter, you should rethink it a little bit. This is some examples of what you can do around here in this area. This is an alpine roller coaster in Holiday Valley. I haven't been on it, but I hear it's a lot of fun. You could go walk around the botanical gardens. It's really nice in there. Have any of you ever been there? Super cool, pretty reasonable to get in there. You could do a very popular Canadian sport called curling. There's actually clubs around here that do it. And this is up at Canal Side. There's also ice bumper cars at Canal Side. Ice skating rink at the Rotary Rink downtown. And sledding at Chestnut Ridge Park in Orchard Park. Snowshoeing and ice fishing, tobogganing at Chestnut Ridge, tubing at Holiday Valley, winter walks and visiting animals at the Buffalo Zoo, which is right down the street from us. Skating and ice bicycles at Canal Side. Again, another thing I have not done. I am not sure how I feel about ice bicycles. Maybe I'll give it a try someday, but it makes me a little nervous thinking I'm going to run somebody over. Winter hiking. All over Western New York, there's all kinds of places to go for a winter hike. It's super cool to be out there. There's less people on the trails, and you bundle up, see nature. It's a great time. You can also go outside and build a snowman, if we ever get some snow. I'm not trying to curse us with it before the end of the semester, so don't think that either. With all that said, what are some signs that somebody might be struggling? That's a hard one, right? Because like everybody's a little bit different, okay? But a significant decrease in hygiene is often an indicator that somebody is experiencing something major. Maybe a depression. Poor class performance. If you know somebody who, you know, typically they've done pretty well and you're always like, gee, I wish I could get grades like you. And all of a sudden they're failing something, probably an indication that something is. Difficulty communicating or concentrating. Disorganized thinking, lacking peer supports, falling asleep in class, demonstrations of anger, demonstrations of severe anxiety, significant emotional dysregulation, and that just means that somebody's emotions are kind of all over the place. One minute they're happy, the next minute they're yelling at you, the next minute they're very irritable, and they kind of just seem to be everywhere all at the same time. Extreme statements, behaviors, or significant changes in behavior. So if you see somebody that's experiencing this, encourage them to get some assistance. On campus, we're lucky because we have the Wellness Center, which involves health and counseling services. So health services are on the first floor, and counseling services are on the second floor. It's at 117 Humboldt, which is the second to last house in those rows, that row of houses on Humboldt, like if you're heading towards Main Street. Red brick building with a green tile roof, and we have Wellness Center plastered all over the outside of it in case you can't find us. We have Wellness Center staff. Christine Ziegler, Chris, is our administrative assistant extraordinaire, and she's holding down the fort over there this afternoon while we were here. Health services is Amy Glover, who couldn't be with us tonight. And then counseling services is myself and Denise Redding, who's in the back of the room. Denise, wave your hand again. She loves it when I do that. And we also have 3 PsyD, so it's psychology doctoral students, that work with us in the center each semester. So we're available Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, but we also have some later afternoon and evening appointments, depending on what people need. There's our phone numbers. I recommend maybe you take a picture of the slide real fast if you got your phone out, so you have the numbers. Also keep in mind that the services are varied. We do individual counseling, we have case management services, and that's for students who might need some connection to community resources that we can assist with, and Denise handles those for us. We also have testing and assessment availability, so that if you feeling that you are needing some sort of accessibility accommodations, and you can make a self-referral, or your professor or Spencer Cotman in Accessibility Services can help make those referrals, and then we can get some testing done and see where the deficits are so that we can help put some things in place to help support your academic journey. We also have some groups depending on the need each semester. And we have something called the Sun Fund. Who here has heard of the Sun Fund? Oh, okay, just a couple of you, okay. So the Sun Fund is kind of cool because we never had this available to us, so this is something new at the end of last year. And it's a fund that we had made available by some donations from people in the community and businesses in the community. And it's to help students with urgent needs. So sometimes we have students that come in and maybe there's lack of food at home, maybe they need a new winter coat, or their sneakers have a big hole in them and they're walking in the winter. And in the past, it's been really hard to find ways to help them. But now we have this fund available, so if you reach out to us in the counseling center or to anybody in the Say Yes department on campus, which is in Huber on the first floor there, we can help you get situated with stuff. We've helped students with bus passes to get transportation to campus because they didn't have that ability to get it at that moment. We've helped students with food they needed. It's anything that's not tuition related. So we can't pay for tuition, we can't pay for books, but we can pay for other needs. And it's just really nice to have because it's not something that we've had available to us for long. We also make referrals out to community providers, including Best Self. Now, we've partnered with Best Self, and Amanda Powell is going to talk about that in a little bit. But it's really nice because we have an identified therapist there that we can refer people to. So that's really nice because sometimes people need a little bit more, like they might need some psychiatric services, meaning that they need medications prescribed, and we don't do that here. So it would be helpful for them to get referred out for that. Sometimes people, since we can't see students after the semester ends, like between the semesters, sometimes students just really need to keep being able to talk to somebody. So it's really helpful to refer them out because then they can just continue with the same person, and it's way more like just good continuity for them. We also encourage people to utilize crisis services as needed. I would like all of you to take your phones out for a moment. I know people don't usually say this in a presentation, but I'd like you all to take your phones out if you have them on you, and either take a picture of this slide or enter the phone number for crisis services into your phone. It may not be something that you ever end up needing to use, but if you do need it, it will be very useful for you. And maybe it's not for you, maybe it's for a friend or a family member. But crisis services phone number is 716-834-3131, 834-3131. They've got staff trained counselors available 24/7. Doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. on a weekend or 5 a.m. on a holiday. They've got people answering the phones. Now I will say they've been very busy, so if you do feel the need to utilize them, don't give up, stay on the phone. They will answer the phone. It's just that there may be a long wait time to get to somebody. There's also the National Suicide Prevention Line, which is 1-800-273-TALK or 8255. So everybody got that if they needed it? Okay, so I have now a message from Say Yes Buffalo, and I'm going to introduce you to Amanda Paul, who is the Senior Director of School-Based Services.
Knock, knock. Oh, thank you. Knock, knock. You're up. I'm not a political. All right. I had to start out with something. It could be a little stressful and heavy talking about a topic like mental health. Especially, I think that everybody here can, relate when Rosaline talked about stress or the things we're going through. We've all been going through quite a bit over the past couple of years. But I'm really glad you guys are here to actually talk about it, to learn about what stigma is, because if we're not talking about it, there's a risk that people are not going to get help, or we might not get help. And so having the conversations is really important. Knowing about it, I know not everybody here is probably a psychology major, but I'm a psychology major, and I'm walking away with some new information for myself and some new goals. It probably doesn't surprise you that I used to be an elementary teacher too, hence my knock-knock jokes, and my 6-year-old daughter thinks it's hilarious. So, Jamil, you can cut that one out of the video later, okay? But I'm from Say Yes Buffalo. Does everybody here, you have a Say Yes Buffalo office on campus, correct? Okay. So most people know Say Yes Buffalo because we have a scholarship available to Buffalo Public School students. That's probably one of the biggest things that I hear about if I'm ever out in the community or I'm talking. And so my role at Say Yes Buffalo actually has nothing to do with the scholarship. I'm in school-based services, and so Rosalina mentioned, some of my role is also helping out with mental health services and things like that. So before I get a little bit more into that, I want to introduce my friend, colleague, and also a student here at Medaille College, Mohammed. If you want to share what year you're in and what your major is and where you're at.
Yeah, my year is, I'm a senior at Medaille, and my major is international business. So.
And today's his last day.
Oh,
Oh, next week, okay. Today's your last day for the semester.
Yeah.
Got it, okay, there we go. So Mohammed is a Say Yes scholar, so I really am thankful to know Mohammed. It's a pleasure to do work with him because he does tons of work in the community, and I'm so glad that he was willing to join me tonight. But one of the things I do help to do is facilitate and coordinate mental health services on other college campuses too, including within the Buffalo Public Schools. So, you can always go to the Wellness Center to be connected, but I'm also readily available if anybody had questions, wanted to talk. I have these little papers here at the end that I'll make available, and they're a way to get feedback just on this presentation in general, but it's also a way if you want me to connect with you on that, I'm more than happy to reach out. And then so Best Self is the provider for the counseling services. In the future, we do hope eventually to have her on campus, but it's been hard with COVID, and space is obviously an issue. So she does telehealth services right now, but eventually we're going to have them available right on campus as well. All right. Thinking about, I just want to run through where I wanted to go with everything. The college initiative piece is the fact that we are most well known for our scholarship, but we have a wide array of services. So there are things from medical to mental health to academic to mentoring programs. It's pretty far and wide across the board. Because if you're thinking about college success or matriculation or graduation, if you're not doing well in your years leading up to that or while you're in college, you might not be successful. And so that's why Say Yes puts these other services and programs out there, because we want our students to be successful. I wanted to talk about our health home program. I feel like there was one more thing. I should have wrote my bullets down. I'll come back to it. But for our health home program, that's another thing that I can help to coordinate or facilitate. And so Rosalina and the team in the back, we've talked about our health home program. This is what I wanted to mention. So our scholarship is available to SAYA students, SAYA scholars, and students who have graduated in the Buffalo Public Schools or Buffalo Charter Schools. But we have other programs available to students that are not SAYA scholars. And so prime example would be mental health services or the health home program. So the health home program, we work with anyone between 0 to 20. You actually age out at 21, so you could be in the program at 21, but you do age out at 21. And we focus on health and wellness and success. And the actual program talks about medical and physical and emotional health. But when it comes down to it, if you're struggling in school and you're feeling stressed, if you need a job and financially strained, those are all things that we help with in the health home program. And it has nothing to do with going to your home or anything, that's just the name of it. So if you wanted to know more about that and know if that's something that would help you, or if you qualify for that program, I'd be happy to talk about that as well. And even if, let's say, you are 20 years old and you're like, well, why should I bother? I'm about to be 21. I encourage you to still consider it, because there's an adult one as well, and we can get you started and then link to the adult health home too. Okay? And then Muhammad, I'm gonna let you take over and share a few words.
Thanks. I just want to say a few things about the importance of promoting, basically seeking help for mental health. And it's understandable as kids, as students, we tend to be afraid. We tend to be afraid, and we tend to be shy, or even just weak for asking for help. And there are services like the wellness center that is available, but sometimes it's understandable that we have social life and school life as students to deal with, and to balance that out can be hard. But if you guys let me, I will be a little vulnerable and share just a short story. So I believe it was my sophomore year, and I remember I was feeling really down. And it's unusual. That's what's unusual to me, because I tend to see myself as a very happy, motivated person. And I noticed that my grades were going down as well, because I barely came to school. And I talked to my friends, and it was one of them that said to me, said, "Oh, maybe feeling depressed or anxiety, which one is it?" And I said, I really cannot tell you. I feel lack of motivation. And then he said, why don't you go talk to a therapist? And when it comes to me, I can talk to anyone about my problems. I'm not really afraid to share. And I was talking to my friends about it. I said, okay, yeah, it'd be a good idea to talk to someone other than you guys. And I was walking down Hoover, and I saw the pamphlets for the wellness center. And that's when I decided to call and make an appointment. And Ms. Rosalina was the one I saw. And at first I was like, oh, she's gonna go crazy with my stories. So let me take it easy on her. But it was nice. I enjoyed talking with her. And with that said, just to make a long story short, I I just want to say, let us continue to promote mental wellness. Let us continue to have conversations about it, and as we continue to do so, we can break the stigma. You know, it's a normal thing. If you're gonna take care of your body, then you should also take care of your mental health. And this what makes you who you are. It what makes you the person that you are today. Is just don't be afraid to talk about your mental health. It's an important thing, you know. So I just want to say that.
Well said, Mohammed. Thank you.
So real quick, I do want to quickly point out Leah and Jessica are two of our mental health ambassadors in the front row here that helped put this on.
Raise your hand, ladies.
And so also, I know you mentioned the mental health ambassadors. If that's also something you're saying to yourself, that's something I might be interested in, we keep the commitment low, right? We work with whatever your schedule is, but we would love to have more students join on these different initiatives and efforts. It doesn't mean you're going to be putting together an event like this, and we utilize whatever strengths you have and bring to the table. So if you're interested in being a mental health ambassador, please talk to me as well.
All right, and we'll have more availability to ask questions. I wanted to do a couple more things with you guys before I let you out, because I think it's really important for us to end on a positive note. And so I want to talk a little bit about self-care. And this was something that Leah and Jess felt very strongly about, because they wanted to make sure that people understood that there were things that you could do to take good care of yourself. And so the practice of self-care, any intentional actions that you take to care for your physical, mental, or emotional health. It could be anything, and everybody's going to be different with this. Who can shout out some things for me that they do for self-care? Anybody? Just shout it out. Say again? Face masks, good. Walking? Uh-huh. Reading? Drawing, good. So we have all these things. Get enough sleep, maintain proper nutrition, exercise regularly, walk, maintain social supports, stay in touch with your friends, find hobbies, find ways to pamper yourself. I go get my nails done every 2 weeks. If I don't, I'm miserable. And it's not because I like having different color paint on my nails. It's that I feel like I'm doing something to just stop and enjoy the moment and be in the moment. And sometimes I even drag Denise with me. All right, keep your mind sharp. Do things that keeps you active. Have a positive attitude. Process your emotions. Don't keep them all shoved inside. And maintain a spiritual practice if that's something that's comfortable for you. So I want to take a moment and talk about mindfulness and meditation, because those are two very important things that I think are often misunderstood. So I have a couple of short videos. The first one we're going to do is mindfulness, so that people understand what that word means. Who here has heard of mindfulness? Just raise your hand. So a few of you, okay.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this would be. Just as an example, driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us would normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually put, oh, I'm pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. Just a little bit of mindfulness. In that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts. I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road screaming at them, your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be by mindfulness. Is that rather than just reacting blindly. And get it. The way to get it is meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the big public. In the 1940s, if we told somebody you were going to run, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it. We don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to be enhancing our motivation, like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed. Let me just close with that. Mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to bring your life a non-stop parade. Nonetheless, this is a superpower and one that is accessible by you immediately.
Okay, so that's the first video, and now we're going to have a short one on meditation.
Despite what you may have heard, meditation does not involve joining the group, paying any fees, wearing any special outfits, sitting in a funny position, or believing in anything in particular. It is simple, secular, scientifically validated exercise. But just so you know, here are the 3 steps. 1, sit with your back straight and your eyes closed. 2, feel the feeling and going out. Pick a spot where it's most comfortable. Usually that's your nose, or your chest, or your belly. And just focus your full attention on the feeling of your breath coming in and going out. As soon as you try, your mind will go nuts. You're going to start thinking about, what am I going to have for lunch? Why I say something awesome. Your brain's going to go nuts and then calm. The whole thing, what you kind of want is start over again. And again. Step by step. Walking around in a fog with a projector. We do it in the rest of your life. Daily is actually success. As I said, game is just trying, failing, starting again, failing, starting again. Here's my advice. You should be meditating every day, 5 to 10 minutes a day. That's it. It doesn't require some giant investment. I don't care how busy you are. You have 5 to 10 minutes to give this a shot. I guarantee you it will make a big difference.
Okay, so because some of you may not have ever tried a meditation before, I thought we could give that a try. And so we're going to this will take about 4 minutes. And I just want you to kind of just give yourself a moment to be just in the moment, be mindful of what is being said, and try to use it as a relaxation option.
Take a couple slow, deep breaths. And settle into a comfortable position with your arms and legs feeling well supported. Letting your shoulders drop down and back. If you are sitting upright, allow your head to balance, loose and relaxed. As if you were comfortably and easily balancing a large ball on the top of your spine. If you have support beneath your head, let your head, neck, and shoulders sink into that support. Savor the sense of comfort. Letting go. Your muscles feeling heavy and relaxed. Letting go deep beneath the surface. Take another slow, deep, cleansing breath.
The shades. We have to have them sign on the way out. Yeah, this is good.
Relaxed, diaphragmatic breathing is the common denominator underlying almost all approaches to relaxation. A natural, effortless flow.
No, on
Filling
those.
your awareness.
They have to initial out on those if they want the extra credit. This is fine.
Breathing in through your nose. Breathing out through your mouth.
So make sure one of you is catching any of the students on the way out that
You can feel your abdomen rise
the sign out for credit.
and
And then
fall
one of you is
with
handing out
each breath.
bags. Okay.
Your diaphragm effortlessly moving the exchange of air with the world around you. Choose a soothing word such as calm or relax. Slowly and silently repeat over and over in your mind each time you exhale. From time to time, you may become aware of other thoughts or images passing through your consciousness. This is normal and natural. When you realize this is happening, gently and calmly let those thoughts go. Come back to your breathing and continue silently repeating the sound of your soothing word over and over again.
Okay. Any thoughts about how that was for you? Anybody? The first couple of times I heard this guy do some of these, I fell asleep before I got to the end of it because I find his voice rather soothing. But everybody's a little different, right? So there's thousands of these available on YouTube. Go research a little bit, find something that you think is helpful, and then just do it. 4 or 5 minutes a day. You don't need to do it for hours on end. Now, I can get this to work. Remember, no single strategy works for everyone. Different stressors might require different strategies. Be willing to try something new, something that you've never done before. And even if you can't change the world, you can change how you respond to it. So, in closing, I want to share something with you. This is not a Rosalina original. This was not my original thought, but I saw it on social media, and I said, oh my gosh, that's like exactly what I was looking for to close out this presentation with. So I'm going to ask you, and I promised my secretary I would not break her glass, so I'm going to try very hard not to drop this because it's all sweaty on the outside. So I want you to tell me, how heavy do you think this glass is? Come on, guys, it's starting to get heavy. 2 pounds? 3 pounds? What, did somebody else say something? 3 pounds. Well, I'm going to propose to you that the absolute weight does not matter. It actually depends on how long you hold the glass. If you hold the glass for a minute, okay. It's not a problem, right? If you hold it for an hour, your arm begins to ache. If you hold it for a day, your arm will feel numb and paralyzed. In each case, the weight of the glass does not change, right? Doesn't change, it's still the same weight. But the longer you hold it, the heavier it gets. The stressors and anxieties that we feel in life are like this glass of water. Think about them for a while, nothing much happens. Think about them for a bit longer, and they begin to hurt. Think about them all day long, day in and day out, and you will feel paralyzed. So remember, put the glass of water down and let go of your stress at the end of each day, even if only for a little while. Put the glass down. Okay? Put it down. All right, so now we're going to have a question and answer session. And I'm going to ask the folks to come up. Oops. Oh, so sorry. Just messed that up. Mohammed, would you like to join? Do you mind joining us again?
Oh.
Okay. Okay, so I know some of you may not want to ask questions out loud, and that's okay. If you do and you feel like you want to ask some things, then you can. But if you don't want to, you can text the number that is on the screen, and I can read the question out loud for you. And we've asked these folks, why don't you guys introduce yourself and tell you why you wanted to do this forum and the question and answer session.
I'll go first.
Okay.
My name is Jessica Elston. I'm a senior. I am studying media communication. And the reason why I joined was because I wanted to make a huge difference in mental health and illness. And I wanted to be an advocate for it.
My name's Leah. I'm a senior. I'm studying psych. I'm a mental health ambassador because I think mental health is a very important topic that some people just aren't educated on, or something that they may be struggling with, or somebody they know are struggling with. So I think it's just really important to know your resources and get help if it's needed.
Hello. As for me, I want to just make a difference, just to help out, and like I always say, be a blessing to someone.
Okay, so you guys can ask any questions that you might have, and if there's any questions for me, you can ask them as well at this time, and also for Amanda Paul in the back of the room from Say Yes. Denise is here too, so you could ask her any questions that you want to. She's shaking her head no. She doesn't like talking in public, that's all right. We'll make her do it every now and then. All right, any questions? Anybody? Yes.
Even though I'm not a student and I'm part of this, can somebody tell me what the experience is when I go to the wellness center? What do I expect? Like,
Sure.
What's in there for me? If I've never been there before, what is the experience actually like?
Okay, yeah, so I can answer that question, or if anybody else wants to volunteer. Anybody?
I can talk about it if you want.
It's up to you.
When you walk in, it's very inviting already, because she greets you with a great smile, and you know that it's a place you're welcome, and it's not somewhere that you have to be afraid of, oh, is someone gonna see me, that kind of thing. You don't have to really worry about it. It's very relaxed. You walk in, there's pamphlets everywhere of whether you're dealing with stress, depression, anxiety, whatever it may be, there's something there for you, and there's information available. And they're very easy to talk to as well. It's not these scary, untouchable people. They're very easy to talk to, very easy to send an email to and get in contact with if that's what you need. And it's really nice.
I think the process is pretty easy too, right? You can call and make an appointment, or you can stop in and make an appointment. In COVID days, it's probably a better idea to call because you have to go through the whole gauntlet of getting temperature checked and everything to get in. But you can also make an appointment by filling out the intake forms online. And if you do the intake forms online, we'll actually contact you within 2 business days to set up an appointment to come in for the counseling. So it's really easy, it's free, it's completely confidential, and you know, it's available to you. I will say the only thing is that we do not have the availability to see students like between the semesters. So if you are sitting here now feeling like I really need to talk to somebody like yesterday, and you're not linked with us already, you can certainly call and we'll assist you in getting linked up with services for between the semesters. And if you decide to stay with that person, that's fine, which, you know, we would recommend, just because once you get linked with somebody, it's kind of hard to like stop what you're doing and then get re-linked with somebody else. But if you feel like you can wait until the semester starts again, like maybe the break will be a good thing and you can kind of take a load off and just relax a little bit over break, and then when you get back, you know you might start getting stressed again, then connect with us once you're back on campus. Just fill out the forms, we'll get in touch with you and get something set up. It's super easy, and I can't guarantee that you'll be with me. Denise and I and the interns, we kind of spread everybody out so that none of us is getting too overloaded with too many folks, because we have a lot of students that come in and see us. Are there any other questions about that process or anything? I want to reiterate too that it is confidential, so like nobody else on campus knows that you're coming there. The computer system that we use is not accessible to anybody else on campus. Like, we're the only ones that can access it, and I'm actually the only one who can access all the records. Everybody else that works in the counseling center can only access records of students that are assigned to them. So we take that very seriously, and we want to make sure that everybody feels that when they come in, their confidentiality is being protected and their privacy is protected. I have no idea what they're doing down there, but it's super loud. I so apologize. I think they're getting ready. There's a basketball game tonight at 7 or something, right? Okay, any other questions? I heard something come through. Give me 1 second, because somebody had a question. What happens if you have the support, but you feel like the support doesn't work for you? Well, I think one of the things is what I said before, not every situation or not every coping strategy works in every situation. So if you feel like the supports that you have currently aren't really working for you, then it would be important for you to reach out and try to develop some other supports. Do you guys have any other thoughts on that?
I just want to reiterate what you said. There's everyone is different. Everyone got their own way of coping with things. And like I said, as for example, for me, my way is just talking to anyone. I would literally just talk to anyone and vent to them. And it's just my way of coping if I'm stressed or if I'm down or anything like that. Or I like to go for a walk. It's just find what makes you more comfortable and what you like to do.
I agree. Does anybody have any other questions? Do you guys have anything else that you want to add? Can one of you talk about your experience with working with Say Yes as a peer advocate or student advocate?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Well, maybe all 3 of you can go. We'll go right down the line.
I would just say it's a great experience. It's a good opportunity if it's something that you're genuinely interested in. Like, I'm genuinely interested in this, and this is something that I want to do for the rest of my life, is something kind of like this. So mental health has always been a very important and a big role in my life. So it's definitely something I want to focus on, and this was a great opportunity that was presented to me. And I thought that on campus we do have mental health services, but I thought it was important for students to see fellow students doing something with it, because sometimes students are uncomfortable going to more of an authoritative figure, maybe talking to them. So it's kind of like we're a little of a branch in a way to kind of that other side. So I think that's a great part about it.
Great. Anybody want to add anything?
I definitely agree with Leah, and I was thinking the same thing too. And honestly, just knowing that students can come to us to if they ever need help or anything, and then we can direct you guys to the right people. Like just the fact of being able to help do that really makes a difference.
Great. We've got another question that's just come through. My nurse practitioner wanted me to have a psychoevaluation for ADHD, but I've been having trouble finding someone that takes my insurance. Do you guys help with that? Well, we might be able to. The problem is that once you reach a certain age, it's very difficult to get that type of evaluation covered by insurance. And usually that age is 18. And once you're no longer in high school, it becomes very difficult. Most insurances don't want to cover that. Now, with that said, if the person who sent me this is struggling academically and you're being prescribed but you don't have accessibility services, and you would like to see what you can do to get some accessibility services put in place for yourself, then you can fill out the form online. If you look on our webpage, for the counseling center, they'll list like other services and it'll be like, testing and assessment. You can put in a referral to request that, and then we'll contact you and try to set something up in the new year, in the new academic year, so that we can try to help with that and make some, give some information to the accessibility services so that they can get something set up. If we did that, that might be something that you could then share with your nurse practitioner to help you get that situated. And if you have questions about that, the student who sent that, go ahead and just give me a call at some point and we can kind of talk that out a little bit. And if I'm not available, you can always talk to Denise. Okay? Anything else? Those are some great questions. I appreciate it. I just want to say that this has been an absolute pleasure for me to do this evening, and I'm just really grateful that you all came out and participated in this. And we're kind of hoping that, maybe we can make this like an annual thing, and maybe towards more like the beginning of the fall semester, so that students know right away what services might be available. So the other thing is that we do some other programming throughout the academic years usually. The spring semester we'll be having our annual Take Back the Night event, and that'll be in April, towards the end of April. So if any of you are interested in helping with planning for that, please reach out to me either by email or calling my number, and we'll get you set up to help with the planning for that. We're hoping to be in person this year for that as well. Do you guys have anything else that you want to say?
Just honestly, thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, this is such a busy week, right? Like this is the last week of classes. Is tomorrow, is it? And you guys have an exam week coming up, and there's so many things going on. So I really do appreciate you guys coming out and spending a couple hours with us. We have some really awesome gift bags with some stuff in there. There's no t-shirts or anything, so I can't overstate it too much. But there are some stress balls and a couple other things in there. And just please remember that if you are trying to get extra credit for a class, you need to initial signing out on those sheets, and they're back there on the table. Just do it right next to your name where you signed in. Any other questions? Comments? Anything? Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, guys.